Right. I'll show the Robin. Hi, everyone. It's Muskie P here and the fantastic looking Robin. And let me tell you, we love you out there. And we got a fantastic show today, haven't we, Robin?
Nice to see you, Plastic. Indeed, we do.
Yeah, we got a big show here, right here on The Buzz. Right, straight into today. We got a fantastic guest. Here's our guest, and it's Dan Ealey. How are you, Dan?
Reporting for duty. Here I am in the friendly state of Tennessee.
Great to have you, Dan. Welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Now, Dan, if you can tell everybody about your fantastic Facebook pages, Paul McCartney and Wings Junior's Farm. Tell everyone all about that.
The page is Paul McCartney and Wings at Junior's Farm on Facebook. Come and join us, and we talk about Junior's Farm and how I hung out with the band, and I show a lot of my personal photos and my contacts with Wings members and all kinds of things that I think if you love Paul McCartney and Wings and the Beatles, you're going to like.
That's great. Can you tell us a couple of stories? And as I said, you're very good friends with Denny Lane. So just tell us a few stories, what it was like hanging out with Paul and the guys. And were you there when they recorded Junior's Farm, the song? I love it.
Well, Adrian Allen, who is the author of a book on Wings, says I'm the first person outside of Wings in America to hear them live. And I hadn't thought about it before, but it made sense. In 74, they came to America. They were in Lebanon, Tennessee, and I was there hiding out in the field a lot of times and outside the garage. And they were playing live. So I guess he figured that out. And he says I'm the first person in America to hear Wings live.
That's amazing.
I had to sit around and think about it for a while and come back a couple of days later, and I guess he's right. It makes sense to me. As far as the song Junior's Farm goes, I would hear the band practice. First of all, I pretended to be a reporter, and I called up Chris Charlesworth from Melody Maker magazine, and I told him I'm a reporter. Paul and Wings are in Nashville. I want to cover them for your magazine. He said, well, do you have any experience? I said, well, yes, I've done a multitude of stories, and I'd like to represent your magazine, but I'm going to need a letter of authorization to get in. He said, well, no problem. I can take care of that. So on June 9th of 74, my letter arrived that gave me permission to get in. Now, the problem was how to find where they are because it was a hush-hush secret. I mean, MI6 and the NSA did not know where Paul and Wings was staying in Tennessee. But I caught a few hints about it, that they were in Lebanon, Tennessee, on Franklin Road in a doctor's house, a mansion with a pool. And I gathered my letter, and I got in the car one Sunday morning and drove down there and drove up and down Franklin Road looking for this mansion with a swimming pool, and I saw nothing that resembled it. And it's Sunday morning in rural Tennessee, and there's no one on the back roads to ask. So as I was getting ready to give up and turn around and come back home, I saw one man on the road, a farmer. And I said, there is no way that he knows what's going on here, but he's my only option. So I pulled up beside him and I rolled down my window and I said, sir, can you tell me where there's a doctor's house on Franklin Road, a mansion with a pool? He said, there's not one. So the last thing I wanted to do is say anything about the Beatles to him. So I said, well, are you sure And he said, I'm sure there is no mansion, a doctor's house with a pool on Franklin Road. So now I had no other choice. So I said, well, one of the Beatles is supposed to be staying there. He said, you mean those fellers from England? I said, yes, sir. They are from England. He said, well, they staying up at Junior Putnam's place. He said, but they don't have a swimming pool. So I said, where
False
is it?
information there. Yeah.
Yeah, I said, where is it? And he told me, and I turned around and I just started up the road. And as I got up a little ways, instead of the conventional bungalow type houses that you would see at the road, all of a sudden it opened up and there was a huge southern mansion way up on the hill, about 1,000 foot from the road. And there was a big entrance. And I knew this is it. So I go past the entrance in my car, which was a Ford Torino station wagon. And I pulled in the first driveway to turn around, and I see Denny Lane standing under the shade tree and Jimmy McCullough sitting on the ground. And I pulled in and got out with my letter. And I said, my name is Dan Ealey. I'm with Melody Maker magazine. Chris Charlesworth sent me. And I got no reaction. They were just staring at me. And I said, again, I said, you know who Chris Charlesworth is, don't you? And Jimmy goes, yeah, I know who Chris Charlesworth is. I said, well, that's why I'm here. So I got in and I said, hey, I got a guitar in the car, a Les Paul. Would you like to see it? He goes, yeah, bring it out. So that's the icebreaker, you know. I pulled out this Les Paul and I was handed it to Denny and I said, hey, could you show me the opening lick to Band on the Run? He says, I don't want to play no guitar. And Jimmy's sitting on the ground, under the shade tree, he goes, let me see it, man. I'll show you. And Jimmy gets it, and he does the opening lick to Band on the Run. And after that, it seemed like we just, started talking. You can tell I was a huge fan. They liked that. They were probably pretty bored, uh, you know, in Tennessee during the day, in the morning. They're just hanging out. But every day I started going down. I got off from work at 2 in the afternoon. It was about 60 miles down the interstate. I know that the statute of limitations has expired because I've checked on this, but I could make it in 20 minutes in my Ford Torino station wagon, which was about twice as fast as I should have been going. But so after that, I would be there and they were practicing up in the garage, and I would hear them do Jet, Band on the Run, Little Woman Love, Hi Hi Hi, um, Bluebird.
Yeah.
But then I got to hearing the song. I didn't know what it was, and I was in a band and a musician, so I understood some of the what was going on that I was hearing. Sounded like they were working out their parts, but this was taking a long time. At the end of the day, Denny comes down, and I said, Denny, what was that song you kept playing over and over? He said, you'll find out later. Now, I did find out later in October of 74 as WLS Radio in Chicago premiered Junior's Farm. I was driving in my car. I had my radio on WLS Chicago, John Records Landecker, and he premieres the song, and I almost ran off the road because I knew that was the song that I had heard them rehearsing in the garage. Now,
Mhm.
eventually, I get brave enough to borrow from a friend of mine a cassette recorder that had a strap on it, a shoulder strap. and a separate microphone. And I started going down and recording them. And one day I hear a horse coming and a big German shepherd. And it was Heather. And she comes down, and I pull the strap on my cassette recorder where it pulled it behind me somewhat. And she said, "My mother sent me to find out who you are. And if you don't belong here, to get rid of you." I said, "Well, I'm not bothering anything. I'm a friend of Jeffrey," which was Jeff Britton. And she said, "Well, actually, you are bothering. And I wish, why won't you go by that fence or go to town or go eat lunch or something?" And it was getting pretty down to I was going to have to stand my ground or actually leave. So I just said, "Well, Paul McCartney's practicing and I want to hear him too." And that was the end of that. She ended up taking off with the horse, and I thought I was going to be gone, but I was friends with the band at this time. And I would be there every day. I would bring gifts, T-shirts. One day I bring a shirt for Paul. It's a black, heavily embroidered shirt because, black is Paul's favorite color.
Is it like this? Was it a Western shirt?
It was, you know how he wore the collarless shirts with the buttons up the front. It was sort of fancy. And I handed it off to Alan Crowder, who was their, right-hand man from MPL there. And eventually one day they told me, Jimmy told me, said, "Look, don't come down tomorrow." I said, "Okay, what's going on?" He said, "It'll just be better if you're not here." I said, "Okay." So the next day, I did not go back to the farm, and we had a horrific electrical storm here in Tennessee. So the following day, I'm loaded back up in my car, and I get down to the farm. I go in the guest house, and they're bringing in some champagne, and I noticed unusual activity. And I take my binoculars and I walk over to the window of the guest house, which is near the gate, where the gate is, and I look down at the picnic area by the pond, and there's Paul with my shirt on. So I start hollering, "He's got my shirt on! He's got my shirt on!" And it was his birthday. It was June 18th of 74. So Jimmy comes up to me and says, "Look, we're having a little get together down by the pond. Paul wants us to work the gate, but we don't want to. But you could do it. If you'll do it, we'll take you down to meet Paul." And I said, "Well, what's work the gate mean?" He goes, "You just stand at the gate and let people in that should be in, keep everyone else out." I said, "Okay, how will I know?" He said, "You'll know. It's going to be Chet Atkins, Jerry Reed, and Roy Orbison." I said, "Okay, no
Wow.
problem." So I go down to the gate. It was very hot, about 96, 97 degrees. Sun's beating down. I'm out there. And the picnic area is about 400 feet from me. I can see it from my position. And here comes a black Porsche down the road. And it eases in, and I look up, and it's Roy Orbison. And he has leather on, black leather jacket, black leather pants. I'm peering into the cavity of the car, and he is, I can't believe that it's 100 degrees out and he's got leather on. But then I suddenly concluded it's more important to look cool
Oh,
than
yes.
to be cool. So I
There it
waved him on in. Now I figure out that sooner or later, Paul is going to send one of the guys in the band up to get me. And I'm sort of watching down there, doing my job they asked me to do. I'm looking down there, and I see somebody walk away from the little pavilion. And I look, and it's Paul. And he's coming toward me alone. It's pretty scary when a beetle is walking towards you. So as he approaches, I took my camera out of my pocket and I laid it carefully up on the gate post because I didn't want anything to screw this up, you know. So Paul, the first thing he says to me is, "You're the guy with the bass." And he was talking about my Rickenbacker bass, which I had. I'll tell you that I gave it to Denny Lane to give to Paul. And I said, "Yes, I am the one with the bass." He said, "You know, it would be silly for me to keep it." And he and I walked together down to the pavilion. There's no one there but the band now and Roy Orbison. And Paul says, "Dan, I want you to meet Roy Orbison." And so there I am, shaking hands with Roy, hanging out with Wings on Paul's birthday. And here's what I remember. Linda had a peasant dress on. Now, you have to be of a certain age to understand what a peasant dress was, but Linda had a peasant dress on. They had a little background music going. It was a very low-key party. And Paul had one arm around Linda's waist on one side, and Denny was on the other side, and he had the other arm around her. And the music was just going, and it was magic. It was Paul's birthday, and I was living the life of my dreams. Now, about the Rickenbacker bass. By the way, I got away from Paul at the party and went over and was talking to Denny or Jimmy or somebody because I didn't want to smother him while he was with Roy. And then a little bit, Jimmy hollered at me, said, Dan, Paul's hollering at you." And I looked around, and Paul and Linda had gone to the rental car, which is pulled down in the field next to the pavilion. And Paul was waiting on me to come over to say goodbye. I mean, that's what a nice guy he is. And I said, "Paul, you know what's on Nashville TV tonight?" And he said, "Well, what's on?" And I said, "Yellow Submarine." I said, "Are you going to watch Yellow Submarine tonight, Paul?" He said, "Well, I don't know. I don't know." But that was when he pulled out then. So on one of the occasions when I got out of the car, I'll show you this picture of me. Yes, that's me. That's how I looked in the 70s.
Great picture.
That's me with Denny and my Rickenbacker bass. And Denny's playing it and he's dancing around. And suddenly Denny goes, "Paul would love this." I said, "Well, okay, give it to him." And I left my Rickenbacker bass. Now, again, he kept it for about 3 weeks, and he said that according to Jeff Britton, Paul's drummer at Wings, Jeff says the bass was a problem for Paul at the farm, that he had it up at the garage where they rehearsed, and he was tinkering with it and playing it, but he couldn't come to terms with taking a young fan's instrument and keeping it. So he said he finally, after keeping it about 3 weeks, decided that he would just play it some up there and give it back. And it would mean more to me. This is Jeff Britton's words, that it would mean more to the fan to have that bass than it would be for Paul to keep it. So that's Jeff Britton's recollection of the story about the bass. Now here's what people always ask me. Why didn't you have Paul sign it? I had the bass on. I'll get it now. I had the bass on and I was looking at it and I was thinking, where can I have Paul sign it? Now, this was a new bass in '74, and it wasn't a cheap one either. This was the model that Paul played. And I decided, I don't want him messing up my bass. So I flipped it over And I looked at the back and I thought, I could have him sign it on the back and then it wouldn't mess it up as much. But here's what happened. I didn't have Paul sign it. After the weeks of being there, recording them and hanging out with them, I eventually came back to my hometown in Cookeville to my band, and I had a record with me that Jimmy gave me, which I still have today, a one-sided demo of Soily, live in Newcastle, handwritten acetate. And in 74, Soily wasn't even released yet. My band was playing this song at the clubs here. But I came back and I sold my bass to a gospel bass player who was probably in his 40s, and I got tortured by my bandmate who was with me when I gave the bass to Paul constantly about why did you get rid of it? Why did you sell it? Why did you get rid of it? So I eventually called the man who bought it up and I asked him if I could buy it back. And he said no. Paul McCartney played this bass. I wouldn't take anything for it. So I have to put up with him living in my hometown all these years and me playing in the band still today with the same guy who tortured me because I sold it and was with me when I gave it to Paul. But in 1995, the man who I sold it to passed away, and his name appeared in the local newspaper in an obituary. And I was thinking, where is the bass? I eventually got in touch with a family member, his daughter, and she called me back. And I said, hey, I sold that bass to your dad. I had a lot of emotions tied up with it. I'd love to come by one day and just put it on for a second, play it, and I won't take much of your time. One last time, I'd just like to see it for 5 minutes. She said, Dan, when Daddy passed away, it went to his sister in Nashville. I said, what? She said, yeah, and she suddenly passed away unexpectedly.
Wow.
And her daughter got it, and either her daughter or her boyfriend sold it or pawned it. Now, I hear all this at one setting, and I said, well, thank you for calling me back. And I tell my friend in the band, it's over. The bass is gone. I'm never going to see it again. It's probably under somebody's bed somewhere. It's in some pawn shop somewhere. And I'm just going to buy me another one and be happy and move on. So I buy me another 74 blonde Rickenbacker, and I've resolved this. And my friend said, I said, besides that, Billy Dyer, who I took to meet Paul too, I said, I didn't write down the serial number. How would I ever find it? He goes, well, let's look at it. So we look at this picture of me with it in 1974. And you see this dark spot down at the bottom. Do you see that?
Yes.
And then
Yes.
above my hand, there's a knot. Do you see that? This knot.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that is very uncommon on a blonde maple Rickenbacker. And Billy said, "You're lucky. You're lucky because that's how we'll find that bass if we ever run into it." He said, "Let me put this picture on my iPad, and I'm out and about. If I run into it, I'll know." And I'm thinking, you are out of your friggin' mind. You're not going to run into this bass. It could be anywhere. But yeah, go ahead. Put it on your iPad. So he does. And on May 19th of 2017, I'm on the phone and he calls me and I don't take his call. I send it to voicemail. And he calls again. And I send it to voicemail again. And he calls the third time. And I tell the party I'm talking to, hey, let me take this call. It may be important. Well, my phone went off that I had a message. So I didn't listen to the message. I just returned the call. I said, why are you blowing up my phone this morning? He said, if you're not interested in this bass, I may just buy it myself. I said, what base? He said,
Wow.
the pawn shop in town across from the donut shop. I said, yeah. He said, I just went in there and they said, Billy, do you think Dan would be interested in a base? Billy said, probably not. He's got several. What is it? They said, it's a Rickenbacker. He said, okay, what year is it? They said, it's a 1974. We just looked it up. Said, okay, what color is it? He said, it's maple. Said, but we sold it yesterday. Said, what? He goes, we had it in here for over 10 years. How why would you have it in here for 10 years? He said, well, it came in and it was taken back to the warehouse and a bunch of more stuff came in and it got moved and then it got covered up and it got piled up and Daddy found it yesterday and put Rickenbacker on the case and set it out and we sold it. Billy said, let me go out to my car and get my iPad. He goes out, he gets his iPad, he comes back and he sticks that picture up, this picture, and they said, that's it. That's the base. He said, look, the guy we sold it to is not a
Amazing.
musician. He's buys gold and silver from us, but he'll buy a guitar to flip. Do you want me to call and see if he's got it? Billy said, yeah, call him. So he called and said, hey, you know that bass you got yesterday? He goes, yeah. Said, do you still have it? He goes, yeah, I still have it. He goes, you want to sell it? He goes, that's what I got it for. He goes, well, there's a guy here in town thinks that might be his original bass, and if it is, he'll probably buy it from you. I'm going to have him call you. So they call me and tell me this. Now, I'm not totally convinced at this point that this was mine because I've not seen the photo that
Right.
he has of the bass that he has, right? So I call the guy, and I'm describing it to him, and I said, look, I already have a 74 Maple Rickenbacker. If your bass that you have is not mine, I'm not interested in it. Could you send me a picture? He said, well, it'll probably be tonight. This is about 10:31. I said, what? I said, couldn't you send me one now? He goes, well, I live outside of Nashville, and I'm not at home, so it'd probably be tonight. So I thought I'd try again. I said, well, is there someone at home? You could call at home. They could make the picture. They could send it to you. You could send me the picture. I could tell you if that's it. He goes, no, it's probably going to be tonight. I said, all right, well, here, I'll send you the picture of my bass. Here's the 2 markings on it that you look for, and please call me as soon as you can. Now, he doesn't know, no one knows anything about the Paul connection to this bass. So I go up out of my office to start going through record albums. I own approximately 20,000 record albums. And I said, I can't sit around here and be thinking about this bass all day. So I'm going to go and get my mind off of it. In about 20 minutes, I'll show you, I got a text, and I took a picture of the text that I got from the guy along with the date from my phone.
It's a
So
great picture.
you see you can't see
See
the
it.
one mark. It's dark, but
I
let me
can
see.
see it. Yeah.
So I instantly knew
That's
that's it.
amazing.
So I called my friend Billy. I forwarded this picture to him, and he immediately calls me, goes, that's it. That's the base. We found the base.
That's
So
amazing.
I said, listen, I got to call this guy, and I can't be acting crazy. So
No.
I said, give me a second. Let me call him and buy it, and I'll call you back. So I called the guy, tried to calm down. I said, well, yeah, that looks like mine. I said, look, I want to buy it. And I made him an offer. And for cash, I said, if you'll meet me in Lebanon, Tennessee right now, I'll buy it. because he was not too far from Lebanon. I'm on this side, on the other side of Lebanon. So in Lebanon, of course, is Junior's farm. So I wanted to make that connection. So he goes, okay. He said, I'll just text you along the way and we'll meet in Lebanon. I said, okay. So I called Billy back. I said, Billy answered. I said, hey, get ready. Where are you? I'm coming after you. He sort of whispered. He goes, oh man, I can't go. I said, what? You're going. Where are you? If I have to force you, you're going. He goes, man, I'm at the vet with my big black lab. He's sick. My wife's with me and she can't handle him. So I was just teasing, but I said, well, just put him to sleep.
Oh, oh.
He knew I was kidding. So I said, okay, I'm out of here and I'm on the way to get the base. So I go get in the car. I'm headed down the interstate and I pull up. Now, look, you guys know what's going through my head in this trip. I'm insane.
I'm
Anyone
sure.
who is on the interstate with me at this time is at risk because my mind is all about, could this really be happening that I'm getting this base back after 42 years? So we meet at a place and I get out of the car and I can't go over to the guy yet. He's already got the hatch up, but I'm a little bit out of it, you know. So I sat leaned up against the car for a second. He's looking at me like, what's up with this guy? And I said, hang on a second, hang on. I said, just give me a second. I said, I haven't seen this base in 42 years. He goes, okay. I said, give me a second. All right, I'm ready. So I go over, and there's something. I'm going to leave the camera here real quick because I want to show you. He pulls the case up.
He's leaving us in suspense, Plastic.
I
I
know
should
this
have
is an
been
amazing
prepared.
story, Robin. This is the
He,
most amazing story I've ever heard.
he opens the case, and I'm looking over his shoulder, and I see this blue notebook in the case. And I'm reaching for it, and he's reaching for it, but he gets it first. Now, remember,
Oh.
he just got this base the day before. So he opens up the notebook, and there is gospel music in here.
Oh,
Gospel
okay.
music. And at the top, it says the name of the church in Cookville where the guy I sold it to attended and played bass.
Okay.
And at the top of this sheet has Mr. Stringer, who I sold the bass to. There's his name.
Well, there's your definite evidence right there.
So here's his songbook from church. The bass I bought the bass new from Manny's Music Shop in New York. I sold it to Mr. Stringer, and I got it back. And he was the only one besides me and Paul that ever played it.
That
And
is truly amazing.
so now, after this crazy thing, I pull the car over. I paid him. I've got it in the car, but I can't even drive at the moment. So
Right.
I called my friend up, Billy, and I said, it was like it was some kind of big illegal transaction of some nature. I said, I've got it, and it's in the car. So now here's what I like to point out to you right now. How does the guy who I played in the band with, who was with me when I gave this bass to Paul McCartney, how does he walk into a pawn shop in my hometown 42 years later and discover this bass? Play the music, cue the Twilight Zone music. But
Right.
I mean,
Exactly.
it's a bizarre story.
It's like it was meant to be. It was meant to come back to you. But I think there are a lot of
Yeah.
parts of the story that are amazing. Like, for example, you posed as a magazine writer to get in. And then you ended up being the gatekeeper so that people who shouldn't be coming in
That's a good point.
get in. I think that's one of my favorite parts of this story. You go from, did you even have like a note? You had a cassette player when you walked in there at first as the journalist. Did you have a little notebook and a pad? How did you present? You just showed up.
I just had the letter.
Just had the letter. Okay.
I just had the letter from Chris
So that's amazing. The fact that they just took that for granted. Well, okay, you're supposed to be here. And then you were keeping people out who weren't supposed to be there.
I've never had anybody actually bring that up, but that's true. That is. Now
it's amazing. And then the fact that that it left you, your bass player, your bass left you, and then actually was collecting dust in a warehouse right down the street.
And let me tell you something, that warehouse, I buy guitars from them all the time. And I was back in that warehouse during this period that it was in there. Now I'm looking for this bass all over the world, and it's in the same room with me at one time.
So the only thing that's going to make this story better, and
I can tell you about that.
No, wait. I'm going to put this out there to the world right now. Paul McCartney, if this has any chance of getting to you at all, first of all, everyone loves you. Please, dear God, sign the man's bass. It's been 42 years. He was trying to get it back. He's been, all of this effort. I think that bass. Remember that fan, Paul. Paul, you wore his shirt on your birthday.
2 years. Listen, he wore the shirt on his birthday in 74, and then he wore it again on his birthday at the LA Forum in 76.
Plastic.
Hey, I want to say something, right? Because I heard the story. But if I was going to say a story, right? This is the story I would have liked to have heard. Don't get me wrong, right? But I'll give it a total different spin. I hear that Paul McCartney's at a doctor's house with a pool. So I rock up.
Right.
And I see a farmer. And I go, have you seen the Beverly Hills mansion anywhere? To the farmer. And the farmer goes, sure, they're staying at my house. He owns the mansion, get it? The farmer. Then he goes there and he goes, you mean this guy, Paul? Hi, Paul. This is Dan, right? So the story changes. And then he sees a horse coming and he thinks it's Mr. Ed, right? Right. Remember the horse part?
Yes,
and then what happens is he buys the bass and then there's a blue folder and he opens it up and it's full of Paul McCartney's sheet music that is handwritten.
I like that.
See?
Yes, I would have loved that too, right? But I feel like for poetic justice with regard to this story, and actually Plastic EP, and sometimes I join him, we interview a lot of people and there are connections everywhere. For example, I just painted this today because we had a little contest and Paul McCartney's old hairdresser, Leslie Cavendish, won the prize. So I'm
from 66.
I'll let it be driftwood that I painted. So there is a connection. There are connections out there. So I'm putting this out to the universe right now because, I want that bass signed for you. It just seems like it would be a fitting end to that
exactly.
story.
But what I'm suggesting, Dan, is you write a letter to MPL and you say, Paul, remember me? You're wearing my shirt. Can you sign my bass?
I don't suggest you say you're from Melody Makers Magazine because I don't think that'll work anymore. But
well, listen, if Paul or any of his compadres are out there, I will travel anywhere in the world with this bass. New York,
and we want the story. We want a recording of that happening.
Yes.
This is for Plastic and Robin right here.
Now,
we want a recording of that. We want to be involved in that because we
want an exclusive. If you get the bass signed by Paul, just get him on FaceTime or whatever.
Absolutely.
Zoom.
there's a couple of other side things here to bring up to you. I connected with Denny before I got the bass back 1 year, and I had this picture of me with the bass, and Denny was signing it for me. And afterwards, in the dressing room, I was talking to Denny about the bass, and I said, I'd love to get it back. And as I stepped away and was talking to someone else, like I had left the thought, and he had too, suddenly Denny yells out, he wouldn't let me keep it. I didn't know what he was talking about. I looked back over at him, and I said, what? He said, he wouldn't let me keep it. I said, who wouldn't let you keep what? He said, Paul wouldn't let me keep the bass. I said, what do you mean? He said, after he decided that he was not going to keep it, I wanted it.
I see.
And Paul said, there's only going to be one Rickenbacker in this band, and I play it. So that was a good inside
How
tip.
interesting.
So Danny, you know how conversations can trigger memories that maybe he'd never thought of, and that came out with Denny backstage. But one other thing happened with this bass is I got in touch with Denny, and I brought him to Tennessee with his band after I got this bass back. And I arranged a gig that he played, and I showed up there with the bass sitting beside me as he did his meet and greet. And I had pictures, documentation, and an affidavit folded up in my jacket pocket for Denny to sign, if he would. So the meet and greet's done, and I said, Denny, you want to see the bass? He said, yeah, let's see it. And I pulled it out. He goes, how do we know it's the same one? Then we pulled out the photos, and immediately he said, there's no doubt about it. And then we posed together once again, up after 42 years.
Wow.
We posed again with the bass, 42 years apart.
That's cool.
It's crazy.
Dan,
So
I just want to say, I want to thank you for your time today. This has been one of the most amazing Wings Paul McCartney stories I've ever heard in my life. Do you agree, Robin?
Yes, and let it be. Paul McCartney. We must
yes,
get
now,
this signed.
Dan, do us a favour, keep in contact. Tell everybody about your page on Facebook before we let you go. And I want everybody to keep in touch with Dan.
Listen, I tell you one thing that happens. They said when Buddy Holly died, after he died, his parents had his Fender Stratocaster at their house, and the fans would come by, and they would get it out and let them play it. Many people have come here to visit me and got their picture made with the bass, because where else in the world can you play a bass that Paul McCartney played? And listen, all that happened because I was just a fan and my dream came true. And I allow others to live their dream through me. The page is Paul McCartney and Wings at Junior's Farm. And I'd love to have you come on and be a part of that. One other thing, I brought Jeff Britton all the way from Spain in 2019. Jeff Britton left Wings in 1975. He pretty much never did any interviews, no TV, no nothing. I'm a private detective. I don't know if I brought that point up to you. I have been for 34 years. And I tracked Jeff to Spain. It took me 4 years to reach him. And I eventually get a hold of the guitar player who's playing with him, sent my picture of me and Jeff together, and Jeff replied with his email address to me. We started a very long, very careful reuniting of our relationship, and I eventually talked the guy who played with McCartney and Wings and never did any interviews or TV or anything, books, basically put it behind him. I talked him into getting on a plane in Spain and coming here to Cookeville and playing with my band for the 45th anniversary of Junior's Farm. And
Cool.
he signed an affidavit for me on the bass.
Oh, great.
Here is Denny's signature about the
Like
bass.
a certificate of authenticity there.
Here is Jeff Britton's from all the way from Spain.
Awesome.
So listen, Denny says I was amazed to wake up one morning with Denny sending me a video, or one of my friends sending me a video of Denny saying that I was one of their best friends during Wings period in the 70s. I was honored by that. And then Jeff makes the claim that what he says, without me, Junior's Farm would have been forgotten a long time ago. I don't believe any of that's true, but I do my best to keep it going because
You
I love
certainly
all those guys. I was just a fan, and it worked out for me. And so you guys who always wanted to meet Paul, to stand toe to toe with him and have a conversation, it's an extraordinary thing. I told him, I said, Paul, when the Beatles broke up, a couple of things happened. The fans broke up too. I had friends who were John fans, and I had friends that were Paul fans. And I said, when you guys broke up, we broke up too. A lot of us never spoke to each other again about it. Can you imagine standing toe to toe and having that conversation with Paul McCartney?
Unbelievable. Now, Dan, I just got to say, we've got to leave it there. It's been one of the most amazing stories here on the Buzz. You agree, Robin? Until
I
next time.
totally agree. And it's not over, and we're going to be a part of this story.
That's it. Now, everybody, stay tuned for the Buzz again, and we'll see you soon. See you, Robin. See
Thank
you,
you.
Dan.